How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing wonderful, Captain. Everything well?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. That's not secret plans behind you, is it?
Yes. That's kind of probably a little old.
Well, we'll wait for everybody to get on board and we'll go over things tonight. Mike, do you know, was that much of a fire on Second Street?
I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was. I went down there and looked. The roof was fairly damaged, but I believe they're going to try to repair it. I was expecting. I mean, I didn't go inside, but I thought it was going to be a lot worse than what I saw.
I mean, there was another call today on North Second Street.
Oh no. Okay, that one. If that was the one around 4, maybe.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
No, there wasn't much to it. I mean, I didn't go down to that one. They said it wasn't much. So
All right, good. That's good.
now I hope that's the case.
Well, I didn't get any calls, so
Okay.
there's our chief.
Good evening. How is everybody doing tonight?
Good, chief. How are you?
Good.
What's Michelle? Okay. Okay, I just got an email that Danny McGraw joined the meeting, but he's not coming up here.
I'm gonna give him a call.
Yeah, tell him we're on the site that I sent out today. I think it changes every time I send the meeting site out. So if he's going off of an old one.
Chief, is that the pipes in your office?
That's the pipes. If I can
Wow.
hear, I can hear them in mine.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause
They're supposed to be working on it. So
I can just hear it over the speaker. I don't hear it here in this office.
yeah, that's here. Oh yeah, here he is. Yeah,
Hey, Dan.
Daniel,
How you doing?
Good, Dan.
how are you?
Fantastic.
Okay, how's the weather up at the lake?
Same as every place else, cold and dark, windy.
Yeah.
So how's everybody else doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Cool.
Were you able to watch any of the meeting from last week?
I read through the minutes.
Okay.
I didn't watch the meeting.
Well, we record from the beginning, so if you go back, you'll see we talked about the Explorer program. And maybe something the SRO would be involved in, so we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Explorer program, is that with little kids or?
Kind of like mentoring.
It's ages usually middle school to high school. A lot of sheriff's departments run the Explorers programs. Vernon just shared some information with us too, I think. And I can't remember, he just sent it to me, but if he did, I'll get it out. But it's almost like be a youth police academy type thing. But we could,
So my questions with that is this gonna be like extra time or whatever? Because I don't even have time to do what I do now.
Yeah, we'll discuss that down the road. From the paper that he sent out, it's 14-year-olds to up to 20. So,
Okay,
yeah, it's not something we'd have, it might be under your, my thought would be it'd be under your direct, well, under juvenile direction, and we may have to, get somebody else to do different components of it. So
okay,
we could talk more.
sounds good.
I wanted to get something like it going way back in, and then I don't know if you guys remember the careers in law enforcement program I did.
I remember that.
Yeah, that would be similar to type of thing. So it could be a positive thing. So
Sounds like a lot of fun. I just know that it seems like every day when you go to work, you just keep on getting more and more stuff added on. And I just wondering, as far as like a time restraint kind of thing,
yeah,
like what they wouldn't want me to do compared to doing something like that, I guess.
Uh-oh.
Mike is the only one that has extra time out of the four of us.
That's true.
Who's that? Me?
Mike,
There's plenty of time in my schedule. Plenty. Oh, lots of open time.
I appreciate all the stuff you do.
Oh, thanks, Chief.
Cool. Where is everybody?
I don't know. They're coming in now. So there's Karen's coming on. Hello, Karen. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Karen.
Evening.
Hi. Started my spring cleaning today. I'm just hopeful. Someday it'll happen.
The stores have already have out Easter stuff, and it's not. It's amazing how quickly they get stuff out.
Well, I'll wait until Monday when everything's on half price.
Hi, Barry.
How you doing, Barry?
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Very good. How you doing, sir?
Good.
Don't tell my wife, but I got her a new cordless drill for Valentine's Day. I hope she'll like it.
I have to.
Hi, Della.
Hello,
How you doing, Della?
I'm doing fine, except I have to be excused tonight. I overloaded my plate. I'm sorry. So, if you excuse me, and only tonight, okay?
Well, there we
Hello, everyone.
Because I didn't get the call. I know. So I get a bad mark. I know, right? Okay. So thank you, but I have to. All right. But I didn't call you beforehand, so I did this. All right. So I will talk to you later. Keep me posted.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Hey, Della.
Good
I'm
night.
sorry, I was reading an email from somebody else here, so.
No problem. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Take care, Della.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Evening.
evening.
How you doing, Kenny?
Fine.
Well, Daryl Bloom will join us when he gets done with the zoning board meeting. I'm not sure. I've got somebody coming on that I'm not sure who it is. Anybody know? It says Voices in Black Empowerment Vibe.
That'd be Time Alone.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
That was probably from his previous Zoom he did.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I can't stay too long tonight, but I'll be here for
What the fuck?
the most important stuff as long as I can.
All right, thank you.
It's all important.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like Darren's with JR.
Yep.
Yep. Mhm. Mickey, you're with us.
Hello, everyone.
Kim, you're with us.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Kim.
Hi.
Barry, not sure if I said hello yet. Hello,
Hello, sir. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good.
Wearing down. The meetings every night this week, so. Okay, it looks like we've got pretty much, I think everybody here will wait just a couple minutes. Not even a couple minutes. No, there's Lori, okay. Sounds like Mercy flying overhead here. I hope it's nothing serious. Okay. Okay, well, we might as well get going. Hi, Laurie, how are you? Okay, I sent out earlier today, I sent out a revised schedule. Let's talk about that first. Everybody get a chance to review it? Okay, so we're on the 11th, and this is our ninth meeting tonight here. And so so here's what I'm proposing. We meet next Thursday night to finalize the plan. Then on the 23rd, I'll distribute that to the council. I propose we have no meeting on the 25th. Then on the 22nd, we will, or I'm sorry, on March 2nd, we would meet, that will be in place of the 25th meeting. We would meet with the Common Council in a Zoom meeting with the council to answer questions. And we would distribute the plan to the public on Wednesday the 3rd. On the 4th, we'll have a Zoom meeting to accept comments. The 5th, we'll accept emails and mail and comments. Same thing on the 8th, 9th, 10th. On the 11th, we'll have another Zoom meeting to accept comments. And we'll continue to take comments on the 12th. On the 18th, we'll review the comments and present our plan to the finalized plan will then go to the Common Council for adoption on the 23rd, and then it'll be submitted to the state. So I sat in on another webinar today on the, hello Ty, how are you? I sat in on another webinar today that NICOM put on. There was what they call the winter conference today. They did it by Zoom or by, actually they did it by this another app, another one, but you could also do it by Zoom. It's not important, but anyways, the state people are saying that there's not, I think one time before somebody said we should ask for an extension. There's not going to be any extensions. They feel that everybody can get it in. They are going to be reviewing everybody's plan, but it's only for content and similarity. What do they use? Where they're going to try to put together the common items that come out in everybody's plan. And the question was brought up today, if there's a commonality, I guess you would say, amongst all the police agencies across the state. For an example was given, okay, let's say for certain training, will the state be funding that then? And the two guys that were on from the state said, we don't have any authority to write a check, but that could be a something that could be pushed forward and say, here, what is needed. So they are not going to grade or criticize your plan. They just want to make sure that you've gone through all the steps and your common council or your board does a resolution accepting the plan. So that's the key issues right there that came out of it today. Many, actually only 14% of the police agencies statewide have got their plans in right now. And so that's why they're already reaching out. Lori Cornell, who is a representative, the governor's representative down in this area, she contacted me the other day and wanted to know how we were coming on it. So they are, they're going to be pushing everybody and to get it done. So that's the schedule I'm proposing. It was said to me from a couple of different people, you know, when we signed on, it was just going to be Thursday meetings, and now we're doing, you know, want to go to several other nights. So I thought I would try to keep it to Thursday meetings, with the exception of the one meeting we'll have with the Common Council, which is on a Tuesday. So, comments? JR?
Bill, something you talked about last week when you said, you know, just sending bullet points up to the council and then them kind of coming up with the frameworks for things, especially on this civilian review board. I think that, you know, some of that framework should come out of this committee, is the people that have been doing the work. So that way the council have an idea on the things that we're thinking of, because if it just goes up as some bullet points, who's to say that the council doesn't put something completely different from what's been talked about here, when collectively the citizenship here can at least provide somewhat of a framework. I know they can't make legislation, but the framework to kind of get the bones up there. And I know it's been talked about with some other people in this committee, similar feelings. So I just kind of wanted to, you know, talk about that. And if we kind of limit digressions, I think that something that big ticket item could be discussed and still meet your schedule.
You talking the police reform committee?
That CRB just as a one point, because that seems to be an important item for several people. And I think that if we limit digressions, you could still come up with a good framework, meet your timeline, and then send the framework up to the council rather than just a bullet point.
It's a great
Anybody
idea.
else?
Well, I think it's important that we speak with one voice with our reports. So I'm all for hashing out as much detail as we can, but where we're still deadlocked on detail, where if we come up with something and again, the review board, the details of it might be someplace where there's some controversy, where we can't agree, is where I think we would limit ourselves to bullet points, but where we can reach consensus, we should give them as much detail as possible.
Well, Mickey, did you have an, and then Vernon, and Mickey?
Oh, I
go
was
ahead.
I was just saying, JR made a really good point. It's a good idea.
Okay. Vernon?
I was going to say the same. I agree with JR. And this is something that, we've all been working on this the entire time. So I don't think this is something that we should try to send towards the council. I don't think this is something that the council will be interested in doing. It's like trying to do double dutch in the middle of, the rope's already going. It's already started. We're already jumping. So why not continue jumping and take care of this? And then as far as, sending that down the road later, that could be done. But the bullet points, as far as sending that to the state, I'm perfectly fine with that, with knowledge that this committee will be the ones that will hash out the specifics on the Civilian Review Board.
Yeah, that's what I thought we talked about last week, that we would push this forward and then basically ask the council if this committee could stay on to hash out the bullet points or the on the Civilian Review Board. So, Mike Marshfeller?
Well, I like along with what JR said, we put out I believe all the members got it, a draft of a potential Civilian Review Board. And I think to me, our union looked at it. That sounds like a good plan to me. Maybe that's, if that's discussed, possibly tweaked, I don't think that's too large an obstacle to overcome, to get that hashed out and done, to send to the council. So that, it seems to me like among the members, the Civilian Review Board is probably the top issue. So I think most of the work of that's done. And if we could discuss that, we may be able to get that hashed out relatively easily.
Okay, everybody got a copy of a proposal? I sent that out a day or so ago. Everybody get that? Okay.
I think we're actually a little further apart than you may think, Captain. When you look at the proposal that I pretty much had got a lot of feedback on from people, this particular one was 7 pages, and the one that was presented is literally a page and a half. So I think there's a long ways away. There's a lot that would need to be hashed out there.
Well, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people on the board, and a lot of them are saying behind closed doors, a lot of people agree with kind of what we put out. And a lot of them did not agree with the initial one.
Right.
I think the big thing also is the union pretty much agrees with the plan that we put out.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a huge hurdle for us to overcome. Greg's not going to be on tonight. So. Well,
let me throw this out there. Let me play the devil's advocate here. So we're going to take comments and suggestions from the public. So what do we do if the majority of the public say we don't want a review board?
I think it. Let's see.
I don't think that's going to happen.
If you have a bunch of people that aren't highly affected by this review board, not be able to get online, then I think your feedback will be skewed. I think you would need a lot of the people that are mostly affected by, or the reason why we're doing this police review board in the first place. I think if you get a lot of those people to provide feedback, I think you'll see that no one's going to say we don't need something put in place.
I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying, that's a possibility. So, like I've said right from the start, I'm in favor of a review board. Okay, so, but we're going to take public comment, And, and like I said last meeting, you're gonna have people who will not get on the Zoom meetings because they don't want to be recorded. You're gonna have people who are gonna be fearful of being criticized on Facebook because of giving comments. So these are things that we're gonna have to deal with as a committee. So, and we're coming down to crunch time. I thought last week we had, you know, the review board was this committee agreed to it and wanted to stay on to hash out all the elements of what it would be. So, what do you want to do? Let's hear from everybody, from others.
My thought is with the civilian review board, and we have this committee here to make decisions. I mean, the public, whatever comment, there's gonna be one end that's gonna want to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And then on the other end, there's gonna be people that want nothing. So I think this committee's job is to get together and find a middle ground on it.
Pab's had his
Well, the 1.5-page plan that you sent around, I don't really find much objectionable about it. I think that it doesn't go far enough, like Vernon said, but it might be a start if we have no other choice. I'd like to pursue some other ideas in Vernon's plan, but one thing does concern me is I think it's the last item. I don't have a printed copy in front of me, which says that all complaints must be signed. They must be sworn to. I forget the exact wording. When you've got people who are afraid of retaliation, that can be a breaking point. Someone might not want to bring a complaint if there's a chance that the officer they're complaining about can find out who they are, and whether or not that officer would retaliate, the fear enough is a chilling effect. So I think, yes, we do need them to go on the record, obviously, but we also need to make sure that there are some anonymity protections that will avoid retaliation. And in the same note, as you were saying, some people are going to be afraid to speak their mind in a public forum and speak their true views. I think that we need to come up with a way that their identities can be protected, and either that we receive anonymous comments or that we agree to protect their identity and not reveal the names of anyone who gives a written comments.
I'd just like to comment, we don't want to have a lot of frivolous complaints though. Somebody has a problem with a police officer, we don't want to end up with a bunch of anonymous complaints. That would be my concern.
Well, that's why I said I agree that they would need to be sworn to and they would need to be on the record, but at the same time, we need to protect their identity and protect them from retaliation. I'm not saying that we should strike out that requirement, but we need to finesse it to let people feel safe in coming forward.
And Chief, I think in the original plan there, I can't remember verbatim, but I think I remember that it was the review board that would decide whether or not it should go forward. That way you don't end up with a bunch of the frivolous complaints reaching, you know, the latter stage.
Okay, we got Mickey and then Barry, and I can't remember who else here. So let's go Mickey and then Barry.
Sure. I think after reviewing both of the proposals that the original sponsored by Mr. Robinson is probably the more in-depth, the more focused, and the better constructed plan of the two. And that's something that you could take pride in because it's actually been enforced and started to be utilized elsewhere. And it's been very effective, and it's making an impact in those communities right now. You know, you can put in a smaller effort and maybe get something going, or you can go with something that you can measurably see is working well. So I'm in favor of the original proposal. I think the second proposal is extremely lackluster. And at this critical juncture for Olean and its future, I think we should go all in.
Barry?
I just need a point of clarification, I guess. The proposal that we received yesterday, day before yesterday, that's from the union. Is that correct, Captain Marshfelder, Chief Richardson?
It's actually from Greg Carey.
Okay.
Greg sat down with us. He had the idea. We sat down, the three of us, and talked about it. And that's something the union would agree with.
I think that if I remember correctly, I have to go back and look at notes when Vernon had presented that very comprehensive original proposal. I think he had said that this kind of a jumping off point for us to start with, and didn't really, I don't know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, didn't really expect that to be fully implemented the way that it was presented, because I think most of us had agreed in that meeting that having a full-time special prosecutor may not be appropriate for our community, but there's other good things that are in it. But we'd have to adapt it for our community, just like the mayor and other people have said right along here, that this needs to be adapted for us and not for New York City, Rochester, Buffalo. I think that what was presented today or yesterday, whatever it was, it's just kind of a rough overview. It's good bones, but there needs to be probably some more flesh put to the bones, and find a halfway point between the two.
Okay. Kenny?
Here's an idea I have. I don't know how many of you would agree to this, but I think we should get together at some point, really quick, take the two plans, everybody bring a highlighter, we can social distance, wear a mask, highlight what we like in each plan, cross off what we don't like in each plan, some of the things that some might like and some might not like, discuss it and come up with a plan. It probably wouldn't take 2 hours to do, but we have to get in a room together to do it. Each person brings a copy of each plan, highlight things, have a quick conversation about, yes, we can do this. No, we can't do this. The union opposes, highlight, cross out, put them together and move on. I think that would be our best option to get this done quickly.
I think JR had mentioned something like that before, and having like a subcommittee to do different things like that. So I'm for it.
Anybody else?
It might be the most effective and efficient way to do it.
Mr. Mayor, the city attorney would have to sign off on any new ordinance needed to construct such an review board, right?
Not necessarily.
Pretty comfortable that if need be, ordinance could be written and passed in the council then. Just in support of Kenny's idea, that's a great effort, but could it be all in vain if we're not doing it in a legally sound way?
Yeah, if you're going to create a local law, then yes, the city attorney is going to have to review and check the legality.
So we could really use his input on this.
Karen, go ahead.
We need to come up with one name so that we're not bouncing back and forth between the two documents. Secondly, and this is a question really for everybody, but our police officers in particular, I think the vision, and Vern, correct me if I'm wrong, was that this was an external review board made up by citizens that would have some autonomy in their actions and their recommendations. The police advisory board, I mean, are we talking internal or are we talking external? External members with some freedoms to make decisions.
Okay, I can answer that. It was external. And we wanted to avoid like this proposal here, the one that was given to us in the email. I see that it says something about the, oh, let me find it before I say. Okay, so it says here in the very first sentence, made up of volunteers from the community, 5 to 7, along with key members from city government selected by the mayor and the chief of police. So, I mean, this seems like it would be external, but we want to keep it as unbiased as possible and have it where, the people are from the community, they volunteer. It does not have to be a vote system. Like I said, the first one that I wrote up was a draft. My apologies for not writing draft all over it, but it was a draft. It was designed to give us a rough idea, something that we can break down, fix, and repair it and fix it to the way that would benefit us. So, I understand that we have the issues with the union and so forth, but so don't the other cities. So they were able to make something work. So I don't understand why Olean can't.
At first glance, to the best of my knowledge, there shouldn't be that many issues in terms of legality. I think it's just the will to create something substantial and independent.
Well, from my perspective, whatever we create, okay, the city's going to have to defend. So there is a potential for liability. So we've got to, that's a big concern also. What authority is this board what authority do they have? It's very hard to terminate somebody in the state of New York. So they have protection, not only civil service, they have collective bargaining agreement attention, they have Taylor law, protection. Our police contract, they have what's called binding arbitration, which is a process that's also protected, or that's been put in by the state of New York, authorizes police and fire to have binding arbitration. So whatever we do here with a board, we have to, we're going to have to, there's a lot of work to do on it. So I'll continue to say, I put together that schedule based on the discussion last week about putting, that we need a police review board, but then asking the council to keep this committee on to hash out what that review board would look like and bring that back to the council. So, Mike?
I think we need to talk about what we want out of this. If we have an independent board that accepts complaints and gets turned over to be investigated, if it rises to a criminal level, a civilian review board should not be touching that with a 10-foot pole. They're just going to muddy the investigation. It just can't be that way. I mean, they're not investigators. If it rises to the level of a crime, if it's an officer that was rude on a stop or whatever, okay, that can be dealt with administratively. If it's a criminal act, that's going to be investigated criminally. I mean, to have a civilian review board attempt to investigate that and take statements from people, that's really going to muddy the waters.
All right.
That's a good point. So a simple fix to that would be that that committee would work with the police officers that would be investigating that situation.
I don't think that's going to facilitate a good criminal investigation.
It's already like Mickey was saying, it's already been done in other places. So I don't understand, just like echoing what everybody else said, like, I don't understand what's so hard about it. If it's already implemented in New York, in cities, more than one city. They have the union. They have all the same problems that we have and hurdles that we have, but they still got it done. If we can't get it done, that says more of something about us than it does what we're trying to do.
I'm assuming those cities are all hundreds of thousands and not 13,000, and departments of hundreds and hundreds of officers and not 34.
So that would mean it would be harder, right?
No, those are problems for those areas. This is specifically for Olean.
Right, but that we're talking about a civilian review board. We're not talking about problems. We're talking about putting a civilian review board together. And if those places can do it, we should be able to do it too. There's nothing that anybody in New York State can do that Olean cannot do.
I think part of.
Hang on. Kim's been waiting to talk.
Go ahead.
Kim first. You have to unmute, Kim.
I wasn't waiting to talk.
Oh.
I've been, maybe I was making movements. I've been reading both of the policies back and forth
Okay.
comparing them on my computer. And, just, there is a lot of differences. One is completely elected people, another is appointed. And at one point in time, I thought we had talked about anybody who was going to serve on a civilian review board would also have to have specific training. And I didn't see that in either of the proposals. So I do kind of agree that maybe we need a hybrid model that is some combination of both of that. I don't know how to best facilitate coming up with that before we need to submit the plan, but maybe there would be a bunch of us willing to sit down and work on something and then propose a bit of a hybrid model. So that's what I was thinking when I was reading them back and forth. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Karen, are you waving their hand there? Or?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking, how many complaints do we get in a year? 3, 10, 20? I mean, 1, none? I mean, how many complaints are we talking about?
You're not gonna get that many around here because it's too small of an area. People won't risk it
Well,
until they know an ECRB exists. Then they will.
Well, and that was kind of my point in the interest of transparency. The public has got to believe that when they make a complaint, that it's a transparent process and it's not the police policing the police. That interest and again, becoming, insider, not being taken care of. How does one go about making a complaint? Let's just say I had a complaint against Officer Marshfelder. How would I go about making a complaint? Would I go to the mayor? Would I go to the chief? Do I fill out a form? Do I go to the police office?
Fill out a form at the police station.
Well, I take,
Correct.
every once in a while, very seldom, I get people who will call complaining about the police department. I take their, I take the information and I forward it to the chief of police to look into it. Give you an example. Just had one the other day. Lady said the officers didn't do their job, were rude and that. So I gave it to the chief. I believe you and Captain Marshfelder looked at the body cam, and it wasn't so. The officer did do his job. The person was just upset because didn't get the answer that they wanted from the police officer. So these are the type of complaints we get.
Well, and in that complaint, she said that the officer didn't talk to her. The officer did talk to her.
Yeah. So, Kenny?
Here's the question, because I really don't know how this is handled. If I made a complaint that was criminal, do you guys investigate your own officers on a charge that could be criminal, or do you refer that to Lori?
Oh. Generally, we would turn it over to the state police.
Okay.
And if it's a complaint that starts somewhere else and it looks like it's heading that way, yeah, we're going to turn it over.
Okay.
It doesn't always start that way, but if we look into something and it's looking like there could be a sense of impropriety, we're turning it over.
Okay, Pab?
Oh, this is a question we've had since ancient Rome. Quis custodiet ipsos custodes, who watches the watchmen? These problems dating back to Rodney King and before Rodney King come down to when the police are, for one reason or not, seen to improperly not pursue a criminal action, or a district attorney doesn't follow through with the grand jury, and just things get swept under the table. That's why I think that the Civilian Review Board needs some kind of recourse where, if they feel that the police and the district attorney are improperly ignoring something, that they have someone they can go to, whether it's the attorney general or the state police. We need someone who can take a referral to them and say, look into this.
You have that now.
Yeah. That's in
You have
place.
that now. So let's see, who's that? JR?
Well, I wish I'd known that 2 years ago.
Go ahead, Darren.
So, like it's been said, those things are already in place now. But as far as this review board, when something gets brought up as a complaint, if it's non-criminal, I think the review board handles it, reviews it, and then works with the police. But if like something comes in, like an accusation of B&E, robbery, even, rape or something like that, obviously that goes to the police. There's no reason for the review board to be investigating that initially, because they're not police. Now, obviously on a secondary back half of that, why I don't see why they wouldn't be able to review and offer some investigation if it's not something obviously of like a felony level, because then at that point it's a whole lot more things involved and things entailed. But as I stated weeks ago, the police, when I responded to Greg, of course the police can't police the police in certain instances, but I think sometimes they have to be involved, of course. And I agree with like the 5-7 split. It definitely needs to be a majority of community members that qualify. But I think that's honestly how it should go. Non-criminal things come to the review board, and then criminal things go to the police firsthand. And then on the back side of the coin, the review board gets involved and works with the police in reviewing it and everything like that on a secondary matter. Boom, case closed.
Vernon?
I just have a rhetorical question for this committee. If we have all of these things in place, all of these great ways of taking care of police officers that may have misconduct or done something criminally, if we have all of these things in place, then why are we here today? We wouldn't be here right now if all of these systems that are in place were working. That's it.
It's a different kind of system that plays into the overall direction of New York State in general. This system increases transparency. There's also the overreach of the state district attorney getting involved in these situations. There's meetings like these happening all over as far as how to increase transparency. There is the STAT Act that is going to make police disciplinary records public. And I was going to ask if we have a standardized form or system that automatically transmit that to the state when a complaint is made. But I'll come back to that. Mr. Robinson's proposal for the ECRB would create a disciplinary matrix. Mr. Mayor is right. It is very difficult to terminate an officer without a lot of work and stuff. And I think that's a worst case scenario. I don't think many situations would lead to that. But if it did, the recommendations made by the board would only help. I don't see it as being a hindrance in any serious investigation. It would be out of our league, it would be out of our jurisdiction, and that's all. We could make our recommendations, but probably not when somebody else is handling the case.
Lori's been waiting to talk. Go ahead, Lori.
Well, one thing I'm totally in support of a civilian review board, but when you start saying investigate, as everybody knows, the accused does not have to incriminate themselves. So if it's potentially criminal or there's other proceedings going on, a police officer cannot be compelled to testify, which also means he cannot be compelled or he cannot defend himself. I think as far as investigating, that's for the criminal justice system. And I think whenever I get a complaint about a police officer, if it's a sheriff, I call the state police. If it's OPD, I call the state police. If it's the state police, I might call the sheriff or the AG. But I think a civilian review board should review things after an investigation. And I also think a civilian review board should have the ability to either request a special prosecutor or reach out to the AG if they see something that should be a crime that wasn't charged. But I also think there's a lot of legal issues when you talk about investigating. There's so many legal issues that I think after the fact, or if it's like what JR was referring to is more like this guy was rude and disrespectful. Yeah, but as far as serious things that might be a crime, I think that needs to go to professionals. But I also think maybe we need to come up with just a process that's more transparent. Like if I get a complaint about an officer, I do ABC. And I have no problem speaking to the public. It's just that they have rights too. And a lot of the complaints we get are specious. We look at the body cam footage and that's not what happened. But certainly people need to know there's a legitimate way to complain if they were treated badly or if a crime was committed against them. So I agree with Kim about the hybrid type of situation. It's just, it's when you get into investigating, that's where my red lights or my spidey sense tingles, that they can't investigators need to investigate, even if it's somebody from the AG. They're often not helpful, but they are, I think, more helpful involving police matters, involving police complaints against police officers. But I think we got to work more on just having something in place also where the public knows if I'm mistreated, I go here, I go there, I file a complaint. And the bigger places have an internal IAB, or, they have somebody, even DA's offices at bigger places have they have an integrity bureau that reviews these things, and their job is to make sure. But I think that the public needs to know, if I am mistreated, I need to, and so many of the bad things end up being caught on video nowadays anyway, that you have to do something. But I really think the public needs to know there's a process I can follow, because I do think people are intimidated and afraid to come forward. But usually the ones I get the complaints about, a lot of times they end up being not accurate, and it's a defendant. But if you're not, but I've also had complaints against officers that were legit and, we handled. But dealing with the state police as a whole, if it's a state trooper, I have no control over what they do with their officers. But with respect to the whole process, though, I think there needs to be some kind of way for the public to know this is the number I call, or this is who I report to, that it's going to be looked at objectively. And I'm all for that. So I know that's maybe for another day, but when you talk about investigating, that's kind of, not something. A lot of stuff comes out after there's actually a real investigation, and after there's a set of rights that police officers have in addition about incriminating themselves, because they could lose their job too. And there's a lot of legal issues that we would have to deal with. There are a lot of convoluted issues.
Okay, we got Barry and then JR. Barry, go ahead.
So I've got a couple questions I guess pertaining to the logistics and the scope of the boards that are already in existence. Ty, I think you were referring to or mentioning other committees or boards that are investigating along with police. Is that correct? How does that happen? And what are the logistics behind that? Because I'd be concerned about, as I think Captain Marsfelder had mentioned, contaminating the pool. Something may need to be done from an outside external source, but how do we do that without setting ourselves up and the city up for liability as well? Does it come down to us saying, okay, this is the scope of the board and how are we going to implement this? I'd just be interested to know how these other committees are actually working and functioning. They might have something on the books that is as comprehensive as what Vernon had presented, which is great if you can pull it off with the amount of resources that we've got.
So from what I've researched, most of the boards that are set up in that particular way, they all have something inside their charter specifying what the charge of the committee is. And they would work, and it says specifically that the committee would be broken down into there would be a certain amount of people that were on the civilian review board that would work alongside with the investigating officers that would be investigating the complaint. The police officers would be the one investigating it. So, and the committee would just be there as observers listening to what was going on and taking the same information that the police officers would be taking.
So the police are doing the investigation, but you've got somebody from the civilian review board that's there kind of overseeing and kind of taking your own notes.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. Okay. Do you know if there's been any concern with, I don't know, I guess I'd be kind of hesitant if the police officers talk to me and just the confidentiality of what am I going to reveal if I know that somebody else is there who's not a police officer. I'm not sure how I'm sure it goes both ways, but I think there'll probably be some hesitancy there. I guess, but again, then I guess if there's the transparency that we've been talking about and they're trained, I suppose, I don't know, I think it's a mixed bag.
I could send you a couple links later on, Barry, show you some
I
things.
appreciate that. That'd be awesome.
All right, we got JR.
Darren, go ahead. So basically we're establishing that the main goal of it is for transparency, correct? I mean, because that's essentially one of the issues. That's one of the root issues is no transparency, or at least people feel like there's no transparency because there's a lot of ongoing issues around. So, I mean, I agree with a lot that everybody said, like Lori and Mike and whatnot. But so it should basically be regular complaints like, I got a traffic stop, so-and-so, like officer so-and-so was really rude and I feel like he violated like my rights or something like that. That's like kind of like a run-of-the-mill thing that the review board can definitely handle and look into alongside of the mayor or whatever. But then obviously criminal complaints that come in are handled by the police because they are the police. But I think it's not a bad idea for the review board to at least be aware. I don't think like as far as like aware of the investigation details, but the fact that it's being investigated and they're able to be followed up on later on, or at least periodic, like simple updates from the investigating officer or officers, so then that way they have the ability to be transparent to the public, kind of like a liaison, like, hey, if you may have heard or whatever, give you an update. This, a situation occurred. It's being investigated internally by the Olean Police Department. More updates to follow when we're able to give you more updates or something like that. But I'm not saying that I don't agree. I'm not saying I disagree or or anything like that. But, I also agree with Ty too. This it doesn't, I don't see any reason why we can't figure something out when it definitely is already being done. We just have to make sure that we're scaling it and fitting it to Olean and not fitting it to Dallas or Richmond or Charlotte or something like that. Like, we're not them and they're not us. So we need to make sure that it fits us.
All right, who's been waiting? Hang on, Mike, just a second. I want to make sure everybody else got, okay, Mike, go ahead.
Well, in the vein of transparency, what and from several conversations, I believe others envision is a board where if someone's not comfortable coming to us with a complaint, I get it, they may not be. They can go to the board, give them the complaint, the board gives it to us, we investigate it, then we get back to the board with our result. I mean, that's pretty transparent. And if the board doesn't agree with that, we can discuss the reasoning behind it and what we found in our investigation. I mean, I think that's pretty transparent. Aside from there being a committee member in while an interrogation is taking place or just an interview with the officer. I mean, that's pretty transparent, I believe, especially compared to what we have now where that doesn't exist.
Can I
I'll
say
go next.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Bill's not,
I agree.
Bill's not calling on me, so
I'm
I'll go.
sorry, I was reading something. Go ahead, Karen.
We keep getting caught up on the discipline, but really, I want to stay in our lane. It doesn't necessarily mean that discipline is our issue. There are so many more things that this board will be doing, policies and procedures. What is the procedure for making a complaint? Am I going to hear back from you in 10 days? How do I know it's been closed or looked at? We should have things that maybe add on to the website. We want to make these recommendations to change this or the evaluations of an officer. But in the end, this is a recommending body and I wrote down 4 things: policy, procedure, transparency, and community relations. To me, those are probably the 4 most important parts. I want to know that when I made a complaint, that it was heard, that it was followed up on, and that I got a response that this is a result, the end of the action. If I called Bill to make a complaint, I would expect him to call me or email me back. But again, he could have sent it over and nothing would have ever heard from it. That's almost a procedural issue. What happens when someone makes a complaint or feels that they need to make a confidential complaint? That information's not out there. I've looked at our website. I do like the mission statement. It's very thorough. But there's not a method. This civilian review board would create a method or a policy to say, this is the complaint that came in. Within 5 days, we'll acknowledge it. Thank you, Karen Young, for reaching out to us. We'll get back to you in 12 days. And then 12 days later go by and you reach back out to me and say, this is the action that was taken. The action may have been none. We get caught up in this discipline, but the civilian review board is bigger picture on procedure, on policy, and its recommendations. The union may come back and say, you know what, we can't do that. This is why. Okay, you can't do it, but this is what we'd like. Something on our website that says, here's how to make a complaint. And it could be Bill under the mayor's tab. It could be a complaint against any city worker, who knows? But this is an external body that wants to make sure that things are run and accounted for, not just swept under. But we got to think bigger than just the discipline. We're getting stuck on that. And that's not, I don't think the intent of this committee is to jump into discipline. It's to make sure that things were responded to appropriately. So, again, we want if we have a member of our community come to somebody, the board, and say, I witnessed this happen at my neighbor's house, and this is how Olean Police, Department handled it. I just wanted someone to know, but I don't want them to know who I am. Okay, how do you do that? And again, this is where the Civilian Review Board can step in and say, okay, this is what happened on this date or this incident. The person that's making the complaint does not want to be identified. And let the Civilian Review Board be that liaison. But that doesn't mean they're in charge of disciplining anybody. You see what I'm saying? I think we're getting too microscoped on discipline when the Civilian Review Board is a much broader umbrella.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Kim Rossi?
Thank you. When you're talking about all of this and even this idea of discipline, even looking at the aspects of the Civilian Review Board, wouldn't, not getting hung up on discipline, but isn't the point of some of this also to help make recommendations that would improve functioning or maybe improve, provide information or improve something for a police officer to do their job, or increase understanding and education with the Civilian Review Board having a connection with the public? I mean, it seems like that this whole process isn't just a process to be used to discipline someone. There's a lot that I think could be learned by the process of the Civilian Review Board and how it's handled. Sometimes, sometimes an intervention can be a helpful intervention, not just disciplinary. I mean, I think that the intent of this is to be a helpful resource. The other thing is, in the course of going from the point where somebody files a complaint to like the Civilian Review Board to the point where some type of a determination happens, doesn't there need to be some period where there's a level of confidentiality? Like, wouldn't there need to be some built-in rules within the Civilian Review Board that information doesn't get out about everything that's going on until the determination is made? Because you could be looking at something where, like that situation where the police officer did nothing wrong, even though a civilian complained on it. Doesn't there need to be a built-in component of confidentiality and that this information doesn't get out into the public? And that determinations are made, and if information needs to be given back a review, that information would only be done at that time. I mean, I'm thinking about how sometimes just an accusation can ruin a person's reputation. So it seems like we need to have some process or procedures on the Civilian Review Board that make sure that everything that's being done is being done in a way that's really helpful to the process, and that what's happening isn't something that's going to just be looked at as punitive or just be looked at as in a way that would ruin someone's reputation or get a bunch of information out into the community that doesn't need to be there.
Danny McGraw.
Yeah, so after listening to everything, right in the name it says Civilian Review Board, which is a review of an allegation towards a police officer. It doesn't say Civilian Investigative Board. So the Civilian Review Board should be looking at and making sure that everything is investigated correctly. We're going to be getting statements from people that are involved. These statements are going to be sworn under penalty of perjury. So these statements will be probably looked at by the review board. So I just think the review board, we got to use it as its name. It's a review board to make sure that the allegations are being looked at and are being looked at correctly. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. One thing, I've been sitting here listening, and I just want to bring the group back to we are working on a plan which is going to be for our community. Okay, not New York City, not Syracuse, not Buffalo. We've said this out now many, many times. And I want to circle back to, we had conversations, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a conversation that we started talking about, okay, what's going on with the Olean Police Department. JR brought us to the back around and said, why don't we say, okay, why are we going basically that route? Let's figure out, okay, what do we need? What can we do better? I said this last week. I've got concerns from individuals that they're, again, asked not to be named, and that we're on a witch hunt here. And I told them that's not where we're headed, that we want to do what's the best for the city of Olean here. And we got to get off of this, of what is best for, and Darren just said it tonight, what's best for other states of that. Let's circle back. What is the best for Olean, New York, for Olean, New York Police Department? And I've said it now probably many, many times that I'm not opposed to a review board, but it's got to be a board that, I think Darren made some good, everybody's making good comments, but yeah, it's got to be a board that is going to have to give suggestions, to put forth to the Common Council. We have a process, complaints come in. If they come in to me, they're acted on immediately by the police department. I do like the idea of having a procedure. We probably never really had a procedure. To me, over the years, the complaints come in, they're acted on, and maybe I do believe we need more transparency on what's going on. But Kim just said it. You can ruin somebody's career. If these complaints are unfounded. And I'll give you an example. When I was doing abuse investigations, I would never name an individual until I had reasonable cause to believe that that person committed that crime. Because once you identify a person, especially dealing with crimes against children, you can ruin that person. A lot of cases I investigated were unfounded. I had going way back, had a 15-year-old girl who claimed that her father touched her inappropriately. And the end of the investigation came out that she made it up because friends told her that's the quickest way to get removed from your home. So these are the things that we have to take into consideration. The review board should be there to review and make recommendations, to review and make sure there's transparency, to review and make sure the process has been followed. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
Said, what's the best for Olean? I have confidence that Mr. Robinson's proposal is the best start for Olean. He did tweak it a little bit to fit Olean, and I believe, like I said before, it's in line with the general direction of New York State and the overall effort. Every small piece plays a part in restoring the relationship.
Vernon?
I'm trying to figure out the best way to pick my words. I know, I understand what you just said about a witch hunt. I don't see it as a witch hunt or anything of that nature. I think everyone here is pretty much laid out where they stand with Olean's Police Department. I don't think anyone here has any ill will with Olean's Police Department. And while we are concerned with the police officers and their rights and possibility of them being blamed or ruining their reputation, at the same time, we are looking at as Officer McGraw mentioned, the title is civilian, and we need to look at those civilians and their concerns. And we need to be worried about those people as well when they bring up concerns and they are turned away for whatever reason. It's already been documented or mentioned that there is no process on the website or any information available for someone to file a complaint. And I know I shared early in the group my experience with a previous officer years ago when I went in with a complaint and I was booted out of the office, out of the police department. So while we are looking at the concerns, we need to be able to look at concerns from both sides. Yes. And try to stay open-minded. I do agree with that. I do not believe in scare tactic words. I am totally against that and leave the politics out of it. I prefer to just stay neutral as possible. I think we can come to a resolution, this group, with ideas for this. Yeah, there's some things that need to be omitted. There's some things that can be added. I think both of them have a lot of good meat and bones that we can put together and make it work for Olean. I don't think we need to worry about what's going on in the other cities. I think we all acknowledge that already, that this isn't Rochester, New York City, so forth. But those places have policies in place, and I don't understand the resistance to mimicking or copying some, if not all of that. So with that, you know, I think we should be able to work together and figure out something, a good common ground. As Kenny mentioned, you know, I'd be more than willing to meet up. There's a few other people that said they would be willing to meet up. You know, everybody bring a pen and pad and a highlighter and write down what they'd be willing to and not willing to go with, something that the union can agree with, something that the civilians of Olean would agree with, and hash that out and then bring that forward. But for the time being, like the mayor said, we can just send in the bullet point that says, yes, we are looking to do a civilian review board for the city of Olean and move from there.
Now we can add to that bullet point, a civilian review board that, you know, Karen has some good points there that would create policy, procedure, and transparency and an investigative process. Just so everybody knows, the I guess you could call it our what is it, the diversity committee, inclusion and diversity committee, is looking to revamp they want to look at revamping our entire website. So it's kind of going hand in hand here. And just for clarification, witch hunt is not my words. That is what was said to me by a civilian that lives in the city of Olean. Okay. And I did not, I mean, I mentioned the officers, but I failed to mention, and you're right, we also have to be sensitive to the victims or the civilians who feel that they have been wronged here also. So that's, I just want clarification on that, so. Okay, the plan, do we want to have any more discussion on this, or do we want to move forward on the, what I sent out also was a concept plan. Did everybody get that? Kenny, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just kind of want to get the question out is that something we're going to do or seriously consider about meeting and trying to hash this out? Or are we just going to wait till next week and have another discussion if we're going to try to meet as a body, as a group, and take the two plans, cross things out, bring Greg in with the union and make sure the things we can do, you can't do, and kind of hash it out as opposed to push it the next week and talk about it again about possibly doing that?
Well, are we talking, I don't know, there again, correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression right now is that we we leave the police review board in our plan with some of the comments that's been made here under that plan, what the plan should encompass, and that we go to a different night or get together at a shortly. I mean, we can't let this go out too long, but we get together shortly and hash that out. Vern, is that what your intent was? I think I got a thumbs up there, so, okay. Is that agreeable, Kenny, with you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out who the other people it's agreeable with.
Yeah.
To me, I think it's a good idea to try to get this hashed out. I don't think it'll take much longer than 2 hours. I think once we all sit down in a room together and cross out things and highlight things that we can push forward. The other stuff, we don't have agreement. We don't have to push that forward. We just hold off on it.
Okay.
I agree.
Or get it, say we're not going to do it. We're a committee. We vote as a body or as a committee. And if 8 people say, no, we don't like this, and guess what? We're not doing it. We move on. I mean, that's how things are supposed to be done. When you do negotiations. So I wouldn't see why we wouldn't do the same thing here with our committee.
All right. Would you like me to work on a place and a date?
I don't want this all up to me because I'm not really getting a lot of people saying they want to do this or not. I'd like to see who would like to do this. Like 3 people said yes, but a lot of people haven't said anything. They're just kind of looking at me like I'm crazy.
I would do it. I will do it. I would do it.
All right. I'll work on a date. Well, let me ask you this. I lost my schedule. Oh, here it is. Okay. I had no meeting on the 25th. You want to do it the night of the 25th? Meet here at we can meet in the police training room. I think it's big enough so we can social distance or we could even meet in the council chambers where we can social distance in there.
Sounds good.
February 25th?
Yeah.
Mayor, I might be late to that one, but I'll be in this, that's the zoning board of appeal night, but I'll head over as soon as that concludes. I don't think it's set for a long meeting. So.
Okay.
The high school has a girls' basketball game that night, so I won't be able to attend.
Okay.
I don't think we all need to
All
be
right.
there. I think I'm with Kenny. Let's get 4 or 5 together and see if we can't meld these things into the useful tool that we want. And I say the sooner the better. If you said Saturday at 1 o'clock, I'd be there Saturday at 1 o'clock. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think the sooner the better, so we can get it in front of us and agree. I don't think if we put all 20 of us in a room, it's going to make a difference, but I agree the face-to-face is an easier conversation than the online.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting a lot of head shaking, so let's go ahead, Kenny.
We really need input from Mike and the chief. Is that something you guys are willing to do and want to do?
I'm not going to be able to be there on Saturday. And pretty much my nights after 5 are tied up. I have an 11-year-old.
I'm not sure Greg Carey can attend in person either. That might be an issue, but maybe we could just Skype him in.
And I mean, just the way this has gone, I don't see it being any different than the conversation. I think some people are hedged in one corner, others are hedged in the other. I mean, I'm willing to discuss it. Absolutely, whatever. I want the best thing for the city. I want the best thing for the police department. I want the best thing for the people out there. I'll do whatever. I just don't see it being a giant difference from what's being discussed here.
Captain, I know it's frustrating, but Captain, I'd appreciate it if you were there.
Oh, I'll be. I told you, I'll be there. I mean, I've been here for the whole thing. I'll be there.
There are thoughtful proposals by Vernon and Captain Marsfelder. I'd like a couple of weeks to look at them because at the end of the day, I think the only way this will ever work is if it has integrity and there's proper due process. The officer has rights being accused, and there's a confrontation clause element. So I think due process has to be at the heart of this for it to work. So I'd like time to really look at it and ensure it's got all the protections that would need to be there. People need to be trained who are on this of the the law. So there are a lot of due process issues that are very important if this is going to work.
So it sounds like the 25th is perfect then. It's 2 weeks from now.
Okay, go ahead, Todd.
Can I ask you, I have somebody just text me and asking me to ask a question. And because they're hearing about this, the training, and they want to know how much training jurors have when they sentence them.
Good point.
That's interesting. Well, they don't sentence. They actually only make a legal conclusion about what the charges are and whether all the elements were actually proven out. And jury instructions are actually quite detailed. So it does require a lot of care for the judge to properly read out these very detailed jury instructions. It can take a very long time. There are often many questions that jurors have that need clarification multiple times. So actually it is quite a complicated process, and you want to make sure that the jurors are well apprised of all the elements and the details of it. And it does require a lot of interaction between the judge and the jurors to make sure they understand the law and what the burden of proof is and all the elements of and it's very complicated. If you go online and look at some of the jury instructions, you'll get an idea of how convoluted some of these things can be. So yeah, I think, training is important. Actually, the better a jury is apprised of the facts, the better a jury you're going to get. So it requires, some real training. I mean, not like a week-long program for a jury. But it requires a lot of question and answer and distilling all the issues at hand.
So the answer is no, they don't have any training. They just get
They
read
don't
instructions.
sentence. They don't sentence a defendant. A judge does.
Correct.
After
They
an
don't.
investigation.
You're right, ma'am. You're right. They don't sentence. They decide if a person's guilty or not.
Correct.
Correct. So what they're saying is if that person can decide if a person is guilty or not and put that person away for the rest of their life, they don't go through training. They get read instructions. Mr. Bloom just told us. So maybe the people on the Civilian Review Board could get read them same instructions.
They don't investigate either. The jury doesn't investigate.
Neither does the Civilian Review Board. You would do the investigation and the Civilian Review Board would be with them. We already discussed that. One thing I don't understand is like so much pushback and everybody's saying that we got to do this for Olean, but when Olean's community is telling you that this is what we want, we get all this pushback and we got to do it by what's good for Olean and what's good for the police and what's good. And I never heard not one time did I hear about accountability today. None. I hear about transparency, and that's great. That is perfect. But we need some accountability in there also. And for all these excuses that we're coming up with, it doesn't make any of us look good.
As far as accountability, in the proposal that was submitted this week, the accountability is told to the Civilian Review Board as far as there's administrative or criminal charges going against the officer. I think that's
the same thing now, right, Mr. Marsfeld? The same way that it is now, right?
No, there's not a board for us to tell that to.
Right, you would just tell it to the newspaper or whoever. But so what you're saying is it's exactly the same way that it would be right now, except you guys would come and say, hey, we found the person guilty, not guilty, we did this, we did that, and then we could tell the the rest of the community that. We would be the newspaper, correct?
Well, I don't know how much of it would be able to be disclosed. There was confidentiality spoken of earlier, and I don't know how far that would go.
Well, I mean, they would have as much, you got police officers would have as much confidentiality as a defendant, correct? You guys can't have any more than a citizen.
if it's a criminal charge, that's different. If it's administrative, it's administrative.
Right. My point is you guys don't have any, you guys don't get more confidentiality than a defendant does.
Are you
Correct?
talking criminal or what do you, I don't understand what you're saying.
Defendant's a defendant. Do you have any more is what happens with you more of a secret than what happens with a civilian?
If you'd like to come
No,
up and talk to me
not-
about
not-
this during the day, I don't think this is the venue. I'd be more than happy to speak.
This is exactly the venue. This is what we're doing. And that's another thing. Every time we say something, you know, it's always, we're not going to discuss that now. We're not going to discuss this now. If I'm asking something that is that a person could use in the street to hurt us, then by all means, don't answer that question. Everything that I've talked about was in this book that we're supposed to be discussing. So for people to act like that we shouldn't be discussing it, what are we supposed to be doing? This is like, sometimes this committee talks so good, but then in the next breath, we throw everything out the door. And it's just crazy to me that all the pushback that we get, everybody's already said that they're willing to work with and try to get a civilian review board. And then we need the police officers there to work with us on this. And then you guys don't even want to be there.
Ty, when you and I, we had a discussion in person here at the station,
Yes, sir.
and it was not confrontational like this at all. That's why I was thinking maybe that would be a better venue instead of this devolving into an argument.
I think,
I don't want it to
let
be-
me,
Go ahead, sir.
go ahead, let me interject here. I think one of the things you got to remember is that section 50A has been repealed, and that's where the civil rights law previously prohibiting disclosure except under very limited circumstances of personnel records for police officers. So that's, more things are transparent. So you're not going to have, before those records were confidential, they were sealed, you couldn't get them. Now you can get them. So the state legislature has taken care of one of those concerns that the public had.
Correct.
So we do have that. So.
And Ty, you want due process from a defense perspective. In a criminal court, a person makes a complaint. You have a right to know who that complaint is made by. An officer is actually a defendant in this action. They really have a right to know who's making the complaint, the nature of the complaint. So you want to make sure there's due process for the complainant, and you want to make sure there's due process for the officer so that you can achieve justice and a result that has the integrity and confidence of everybody. And I'm for training jurors. I'm for training judges. I'm for training these boards, train and for training law enforcement. As I suggested, law enforcement should avail themselves of all the FBI training they can get, because the instances of police brutality within the FBI are negligible because they're well trained and well funded. So I think the more training we can get to everything, the better quality result you're going to get. So that was all I was trying to get across about training. I think we could all benefit from better training.
How can we verify that the current collective bargaining agreement that's being negotiated, probably as we speak, I'm not sure, is also just and due process? As we're discussing these things, aren't we coming into a new bargaining agreement? A
Yes.
new,
Yes,
yeah.
we're
So how
starting-
could this board look at that, since, it's on the table? Talking about due process, we want to make sure policies and procedures are there.
No, I don't believe you can. I don't think, I think there's a process where that's not, negotiations is not open to the public.
And there's the key issue. If you can't have internal due process, you need a little check and balance, a little external due process.
Well, the Common Council has to approve any negotiation settlement. So, they are briefed on the negotiations. I'm not sure where you're going with this. What's the issue with negotiations?
Oh, just talking about due process. He said we need due process through and through. Yes, we do. I agree.
Okay. there's, under the Taylor law, there's items that have to be negotiated. One thing is that once it's in the contract, it has to be negotiated. Union can refuse to negotiate it, and it stays there. Same way as with items, the municipality can not wish to discuss those items. And if there is a process where that could go on to arbitration, then an arbitrator would rule on certain aspects. So,
Mayor, if you guys keep saying that some of this stuff has to go in front of the union, but we can't discuss anything with the union or look at anything, the proposal that's being up there, how do we know that anything that we suggest gets through?
I think what they're talking here about items that have to go to the union would be specific to the review board on what you want to do. That I believe you're going to have a discussion on that coming up on the 25th, if we can get with the union representative, Greg Carey. So whatever you want to talk about there with this review board, you can talk about it with them. But as for the aspects of us negotiating this review board in, I don't think we have to do that. You know, we don't have to negotiate this in. This would be an action of the Common Council. And then the certain aspects of this committee and where, you know, what is done, we'd have to take a look and make sure that it doesn't violate, just like in the union contracts, there's a section on discipline, on how an officer can be disciplined. So, and then you'll have to follow the Taylor law. And, when you talk about in civil service law, when you talk about discipline. So there's items in there that, the Taylor law, that state, the only way that can be changed is by state legislation. Now, civil service law, the same way, changed by state legislation. And, but what's in there about discipline and that could be negotiated with the union and the city. So.
And it might be our job as a committee to enlighten the council, and I'm sure they'll ask us lots of questions and everything, and it should be nice and constructive.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Karen?
Before we wrap up, I was just overlooking at your plan. I apologize. I try and get everything looked at before. On the last end of your page, there's kind of talking points of kind of what we've done, but it's not really an action. So if you could turn those last paragraphs, like it says the role of a social worker, I think we kind of came to the determination that we would use the county and hospital social service or social workers instead of a ride-along social worker.
Yeah, these aren't complete. That's I didn't preface that because we didn't get to this. The plan is not. This is not a complete. Like I said, this is a conception, and we've been throwing the ideas down here. And okay, we've got about a minute left here. So what I'd like everybody to do is take a look at this, and there's more to put in here. We have to put in once we have the public outreach, we have to put that in here. Part of this plan, we're going to put the minutes from the town hall meetings that we held. That'll be in here when it's submitted. That has a lot of information in there, comments and that. And then there's just a lot of work. There's still a lot of work to do on this before it comes to what we want to submit. So it was to give everybody this is the concept we're going with, and I'd like everybody to take a look at that before next week, and we can have a discussion on this concept plan next week. So as for the police review board, then I'll put on the 25th. I'll get a location that, and just fire me off an email if you're interested in being there or not. And then before that time, we can announce next week at who wants to be there and who is not. I'll probably have depending on the number, we'll use the police training room here at the municipal building. Or we'll use the courtroom here or the council chamber. Okay. All right. A good spirited conversation tonight. Please don't get discouraged. And, I take comments every day from the public about what's going on here. So, and as I'm sure you all do. So, and we want to pay attention to our citizens out there and come up with a product there again that is workable for Olean, New York for many, many years to come. So thank you all. Have a good evening. And
Good night.
good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.